guys, it's Karina here with another video. So today I'm going to be talking about a very controversial issue, and that is about the whole LGBTQ community in the church, and what that looks like in Christianity. Now it has taken me a really long time to come to this point, and for a while I wanted to wait to post this video because I thought I needed more research, I need to read more books and whatnot. But I think we get to a point where we need to make our own decision where we stand with this issue. I don't want to call it an issue because it's not an issue. With this topic. There we go. With this topic. So yeah, I think eventually we need to reach that conclusion and need to decide where we stand, because ultimately we're not God and we're never going to know all the answers. So I think eventually you need to use your own spiritual discernment and trust yourself and decide where you stand with this topic. And I think that, yeah, I've battled with this probably since grade 7 or 8. And, yeah, that was probably the first time I really heard about the whole topic of LGBTQ. And, yeah, in grade 8 I signed up for a conference to go to this LGBTQ awareness thing. And it was like a 2-day conference, and we learned everything there is to know about all the different sexual orientations and how it all works. And that was where my passion kind of grew for these people, and I have always been someone who has standed up for equality, and I believe in social justice. I ran the social justice club my last year in high school, and I was a part of the club throughout grade 7, 8, and then all through high school. So I'm super passionate about social justice, and I believe everyone deserves equality. So this was an issue I was always super passionate about, but I never knew how to make it work with my faith and what I believed. And it wasn't really until the summer that I realized there's actual evidence that supports affirming, and you don't have to be on the non-affirming side. And yeah, this summer I was able to discover through God is Grey and many other YouTubers how we can affirm this community. And yeah, so I feel like this is what is right, and I know it's right, and I don't know it's right because I'm not God, but this is what I think is right, and I'm going to share with you guys why I think it's right and the evidence I have found, and yeah, I will do my very best to explain it. And yeah, just to clarify, yeah, I'm not a theologian, I'm not God, I'm just a random person who's researched on the internet, but this is what I've found, and I hope some of it resonates with you. So let's get into the video. So the Bible does not use the word homosexuality. The word homosexuality wasn't even invented until 1868. So you can just see this is a very relevant new topic. Hey guys, so I wanted to refilm this part of the video because in the first take of the video I didn't explain this passage very well. So in Genesis 19:5, it talks about the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. And oh my goodness, this story is so far-stretched, how it relates to homosexuality. Like, it took me so long to actually figure out how it even relates, and it's like, how it relates is even so far-stretched. So the story of Sodom and Gomorrah is a crazy story, and some really awful stuff happens, and essentially it's about these two angels that come to Lot's door, and Lot is hosting these angels, and then like a huge gang of people come, and for some reason they're demanding to rape these angels, and instead Lot offers his 2 virgin daughters, and then God is infuriated by that, so God tells the angels to take Lot and his family out of the city, and then he burns Sodom. So it's a crazy story, and crazy stuff was happening, and obviously this is a totally different time, so that's why there's so many crazy stuff going on. But to get to the point, okay, so for whatever reason people think that like this verse or this story is related to homosexuality because of the word Sodom. So the word Sodom originates from the word sodomy. So the word sodomy essentially just means anal or oral sex, and I guess most people just assume that that equals homosexuality, because in the Bible and in the church, they told the people not to do sodomy because they believed that sex was only for procreation and not for other things. So I guess anal and oral sex were always associated with gay people, so they somehow equated this to thinking that homosexuality is a sin. So you can see that it's a really far stretch. And then in 3 other places in Scripture, in Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel, it references the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, and in all of these stories, nowhere does it mention, in all of these references, nowhere does it mention that homosexuality is a sin. What it refers to, when it refers to this story, is that adultery, injustice, lying, pride, habitual greed, and lack of care for the poor is a sin. It does not mention that homosexuality is a sin. So therefore I think that this verse is taken out of context, and it's been stretched to mean something that people think it's not. The second verse is Leviticus 18:22 and Leviticus 20-13. So just in general, the book of Leviticus has a lot of crazy procedures and sacrifices and all of this stuff that we should be following. The book of Leviticus talks about how we cannot eat shellfish. We should not be mixing fabric garments. They cannot be mixed. There's a bunch of different random laws, and we do not follow those today. So why should we follow what it says about homosexuality is one question you could ask. So in Leviticus it says, "You shall not lie with a male as a woman. It's an abomination. If a man lies with a male as with a woman, both have committed an abomination. They shall be put to death, and their blood is upon them." So this verse is not about homosexual love or being gay. This is a command there with all of the connotations of adultery, promiscuity, idol worship, and surrounding nations. So it is not referring to homosexuality, it's referring to adultery, promiscuity, etc. So again, this verse is being taken out of context. The next verse is Romans 1:26. So adultery, promiscuity, and shrine prostitution are what Paul is addressing in this passage in Romans 1, not same-sex relationship between faithful and committed partners. This passage is clearly not about same-sexual behavior. It's about the gross misuse of power, Roman elitists, and misguided over-sexualized spirituality. The next one is 1 Corinthians 6:9-11. So there's the verse, and there's two words, Greek words, that are part of this verse. The first one is Malachi and Arnesikite. I'm totally butchering these words. They're Greek words. And the Bible is Greek, so also just something to consider. The Bible is Greek, and we don't have a perfect dictionary of Greek or perfect translation of Greek. A lot of the words in Greek we don't have a direct translation of. So I think in that case the Bible can also be misinterpreted because there's not a direct translation to every Greek word in English. So yeah, the first two it's talking about are the Malachi and then I can't even say it. Anyways, the word Malachi is meant to be it means effeminate. It's a Greek word that literally means soft, and is used to describe fine clothing elsewhere in the New Testament. So in the other part of the New Testament, it's used to define fine clothing, but then in this one, it's used to like talk about homosexuality. Like, it just doesn't make sense or line up. So there were sexual connotations for the Malachi as well, but again, it always points back to the uncontrolled acts of lust or misused sexuality, no matter the gender act. The word was not understood to reference same-sex behavior in the church until after the 20th century, when Bible translations adopted a new slant. So then again, it's just explaining how this word has been misinterpreted. And then the other word, arsenikate, totally saying that wrong, is more bizarre and hard to grasp. Many believe that St. Paul actually invented the word as it is extremely rare in Greek literature. I can't talk today. The word literally is a combination of two other Greek words, arsen, male, and koitos, bed. So arkenskoti could be translated as literally male bedders. And this word was understood by Bible translations before the 20th century to mean male-male sexual intercourse. But then the word is used elsewhere in ancient Greek literature, and it references the abuse of the poor or economic exploitation of power abuses. The Acts of John lists archaeopsy amongst a list of sins separated from a catalog of other sexual sins. Many believe that archaeopsy is about economic abuses and exploitation. So, once again, you can see this word could have easily been misinterpreted, and it's used in other contexts in the Bible. So, as you can see, this issue is very complicated. Okay, there's a couple more. I think we're getting close to the end. Once again, in 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 9 to 10, the word archaeopsy is used again in this passage. And again, so I think you can't really trust this verse if there's a word in it that's being misinterpreted. Yeah, so I think that's it. That was the 6th verse. So, as you can see, all of the passages in the Bible that refer to homosexuality are not clear. It is clear that God's intention was marriage to be between a man and a woman. But I think that God's intention for a lot of things has been blown out of proportion, and his intention has been lost. And I do think that God is meant to restore restore the earth, but I think that comes for a day and a place. And just my whole thoughts on this issue is I think we are meant to embrace who we are, and I don't think we should be constantly thinking that something's wrong with us, and yeah, I don't think we should be suppressing feelings or emotions. And also, one other thing I wanted to touch on is like the whole like protesters at pride parades and just like protesters in general. I just think they're kind of out of line. I was reading this article about how how as Christians we should be calling each other out and whether that's appropriate or not. And I think ultimately, as Christians, we should be considering what our motivation is for calling out that person. And we have to make sure what we're addressing is scriptural and not just based on our own preferences and biases. And ultimately, we need to have a relationship with that person and a built trust. And I think ultimately, like, the people protesting at the Pride Festival, do you have a trust built with those people? Like, no. Did you check your intentions in doing that? Like, by doing that, you're just hurting these people and becoming across hateful. Like, I don't think it's loving what people are doing at these Pride festivals by, like, and Pride parades, by, like, protesting with signs, like, saying, you're going to hell. Like, I don't think that's appropriate or in any way, like, loving at all. So I think that we all need to check ourselves. And what ultimately comes down to, like, I think, ultimately your sexual orientation is between you and God, and I don't think that as Christians, we have a place to always weigh into other people's lives. I think, yes, if there's a trust and you really feel like what they're doing is wrong, maybe in a loving way you can tell them that, but I don't think we should be constantly meddling into their lives and telling them what we think. Like, I don't think that's our place to do that. Okay, one other thing I wanted to talk about is whether this all really goes with God's nature and character. Jesus loved outsiders because he believed with all of his heart that they belonged. They were insiders to Jesus, even if they were outsiders to the empire of the religious elite. And that is what mattered. So I think Jesus truly believed everyone belonged and should be loved. Jesus was fully man and fully God, meaning he made mistakes too, since he was fully human, is something that we also need to consider. So in many ways, Jesus reveals all the ways he misunderstood and mischaracterized and misinterpreted God. He shows us what God is really like and what God's heart is truly like. And I think we need to take all of this into consideration when we decide our opinion on this topic. And also, one more thing I wanted to mention was just the pattern in history. So for example, with the whole black and white people and all of the racism and inequality that happened in the 19th century in America, for example, there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened. And there was a lot of people who believed that the black and white people should be separated. A lot of Christians who believed the black and white people should be separated. And there were so many protesters. And if you actually look at what the people were saying back then and what people are saying about LGBTQ people, the history is repeating. So you can see that history is repeating itself. Yes, these are two very different issues, but they're both about equality. And ultimately, I am for equality, and I think God is for equality, and we're all meant to be equal. And nobody's meant to be seen higher. Only God is meant to be seen the highest because He's God. As people, we should be equal. And I truly believe that. So, yeah. These are my thoughts. I could be wrong. I don't know. But I'm personally going to choose to affirm these people. And I will post all the links of the websites that I use. And also I will post in the description box different books you can read. I personally haven't read any books yet, but I really hope to. So I'll probably make a follow-up video with some of the books that I hope to read and what I think of them and what they talk about. So yeah, I hope this video encourages you, and I hope you really take the time to decide what you think about this topic. And yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below, and know that if God puts you to it, He will put you through it. Alright, bye guys. Hey guys, okay, so two more things I forgot to mention. So, number one, what I was talking about with the whole racism relating to the LGBTQ issue, one other thing I wanted to say was it proves how easily Scripture can be twisted to align with what someone may want to think, was one thing I wanted to point out. And then the other thing I wanted to point out was all sins in the Bible have a harm to life, and they harm other people, and they harm our world. And one other thing that we should be considering is, how does homosexuality, how does the LGBTQ community harm our earth? And I personally don't think loving another person is harming. So I think that's one other thing we need to consider when we consider whether is being gay a sin. And then the last thing I want to say is, please like this video and subscribe. Alright, that's it. Thanks guys. Bye.